The Black Sea churns under a dark, unforgiving 1941 sky. A small fleet prepares to face a giant in the cold water. This is the Royal Romanian Navy, a force built on pride. The war has arrived, and there is no turning back now. Romania stands at a crossroads between two warring empires. The Forgul Naval Regale Romain prepares its modest defenses. They're dwarfed by the massive Soviet Black Sea Fleet. Yet, the heart of the Romanian sailor remains made of iron. Oil is the lifeblood of the Axis, flowing from Ploiesti. Constanga is the gate that must stay open at all costs. If the Soviet ships break through, the war is over. The thin line of Romanian steel is the only shield left. June 22, 1941 marks the start of the Great Invasion. The quiet morning is shattered by the sound of naval sirens. Ships slip their moorings and head into the dangerous deep. A secondary power is now fighting a primary world war. Meet the kings of the fleet, the Regal Ferdinand class. These destroyers were born in Italy but raised in Romania. Sleek, fast, and armed to the teeth for coastal combat. They are the most powerful weapons the nation possesses. The Regal Ferdinand and Regina Maria lead the formation. They were originally built for Portugal, but found a new home. Purchased in 1927, they represent Romania's naval ambition. Their raked bows cut through the salt spray with grace. Propulsion comes from 44,000 roaring shaft horsepower. Twin turbines drive these giants to a blistering 36 knots. Even with age, they can still outrun the Red Navy's wrath. They are the fastest predators in these restricted waters. Look closer at the 5 120mm dual-purpose guns on deck. They can strike a target from 15 kilometers away. But a hidden flaw lurks in their manual aiming systems. The sky is becoming a graveyard, and they are vulnerable. 6 torpedo tubes stand ready to launch their lethal cargo. A single hit can send a Soviet cruiser to the seabed. But the air is where the true danger will soon descend. The sailors look up, scanning the clouds for the enemy. Every 180 men on these ships live in constant tension. Damage-controlled drills are practiced until hands are bloody. They know that on the Black Sea, help is never coming. They are the vanguard of a nation caught in the middle. The siege of Odessa begins with a roar of heavy artillery. The Ferdinand and Maria move in to support the ground troops. They become floating batteries, raining fire on the shore. The smell of cordite fills the air as the barrels glow red. Soviet coastal guns fire back with terrifying accuracy. Plumes of water erupt around the zigzagging destroyers. It is a lethal dance of timing and nerves under fire. The Romanian ships survive their first true baptism, but the Soviet Air Force is watching from the high clouds. They see the pride of Romania, and they want it destroyed. The destroyer's anti-aircraft guns are far too few. A shadow falls over the deck as the first bombers dive. July 26, 1941, is a date that will live in infamy. The Regina Maria is caught in the open off the coast. Soviet P-2 bombers scream down in a coordinated strike. The sky is filled with black smoke and tracers. Multiple bombs strike the Regina Maria's thin deck. The explosion rips through the heart of the engine room, which breaks apart in a roar of steam and twisted metal. In minutes, the pride of the fleet vanishes beneath. The Regal Ferdinand is now a lonely king on the sea. The crew works day and night to bolster her defenses. Extra 20mm cannons are welded to every flat surface. But can steel alone stop the wrath from the heavens? July 8, 1943, brings the war to the home harbor. The Ferdinand is moored at Constanga for vital repairs. A surprise Soviet air raid catches the port sleeping. The harbor water boils as the bombs begin to fall. A direct hit settles the fate of the last modern king. Ferdinand catches fire and sinks at her own dock. She rests on the harbor bottom, a broken monument. The heavy striking power of Romania is now gone. Now we turn to the Maracti and Maricetti destroyers. These are the old guard, veterans of a previous era, acquired from Italy after the First Great World War. They are worn, tired, but still ready for the fight. They displace 1,400 tons and show the scars of time. Their systems are obsolete compared to the new Kings, but they provide the numbers the Navy desperately needs. They are the workhorses that never stop their patrols. Their 102mm guns are smaller and have less range. Against a modern cruiser, they stand very little chance. But in the coastal shallows, they are still dangerous. They escort the convoys that keep the oil flowing. The Maracti survives many brushes with certain death. The crew learns to navigate by the stars in the wind. They dodge torpedoes and bombs with sheer maritime skill. But age and war are a combination that eventually kills. August 10th, 1943, the sky turns dark for the Maracti. Soviet aircraft find her while she is far from support. The aging hull cannot withstand the shock of the hits. She sinks quickly, taking her secrets to the deep. The Maricetti is the final destroyer left in the fight. She operates with caution, preserving what is left, a ghost of a fleet that once hoped to rule the sea. She will survive to see the dramatic switch of sides. Beneath the waves, the war is silent and terrifying. The submarine Delfinul is the first hunter of the deep, an Italian-built boat delivered in the early 30s. She is small, cramped, and smells of diesel and sweat. 650 tons of steel gliding through the murky water. She can stay submerged for hours, hidden from sight. But the sonar pings of the enemy are always hunting.
One mistake
Means a watery grave for all 45 men. The Delfinul carries 8 torpedoes in her belly. She also carries a deck gun for surface engagements. Her mission is to find the Soviet supply lines and cut them. She stalks the Crimean coast like a phantom predator. August 1941, she finds a target she didn't expect. A Soviet submarine, the SE-206, appears in the sights. It is a rare duel between two shadows in the dark. The Delfinul fires, and the underwater explosion is felt. The Soviet boat is destroyed in a single violent strike. It is a victory that proves Romanian skill at sea. But the hunters are also being hunted by destroyers. Depth charges begin to rain down from the surface. The hull of the Delfinul groans under the pressure. Light bulbs shatter, and water leaks through the seals. The men hold their breath as the explosions get closer. She survives, but the scars on her hull never heal. By 1943, the Delfinul is too tired to continue the hunt. She is relegated to training the next generation of men. Her mechanical parts are failing after years of war. She has done her duty and earned her place in history. Now comes the Rechinal, the shark of the Black Sea. A more modern submarine with better speed and range. Delivered in 1941, she is built for long-distance kills. She carries 10 torpedoes and a much larger deck gun. The Rechinal patrols the furthest reaches of the sea. She stays out for weeks, hunting in Soviet territory. The psychological strain on the crew is nearly breaking. Living in a metal tube while the world is at war, she achieves several hits on Soviet merchant ships. Her presence forces the Soviet fleet to stay on guard, but the anti-submarine defenses are getting stronger. Every patrol is a gamble with the lives of the crew. Then there is the Marsuignal, the porpoise of the fleet, the third and final submarine of the Royal Navy. Broadly similar to the Shark in design and in power, she conducts reconnaissance missions in enemy ports. She gathers intelligence on the Red Fleet's movements. The information she brings back is vital for the Axis. But like her sisters, she is plagued by mechanical loss. Spare parts from Italy are becoming impossible to find. The fate of these submarines is shrouded in mystery. Some say they were lost, others say they were taken. After the switch of 1944, they were never the same. They were captured by the Soviets and renamed in 1945 from the deep. We moved to the fast Mosquito fleet. The Nuco-class motor torpedo boats are built for speed, designed and built at the Galat shipyard in Romania. They represent the indigenous strength of the nation. They displace only 50 tons and are made of light wood. But they carry 3 engines with 3,600 horsepower. At 45 knots, they are the fastest things on the water. They strike like a lightning bolt and disappear fast. To 533 mm torpedoes are strapped to their sides. The tactics are simple: get close, fire, and run away. They operate mostly at night to avoid the bombers. The wind screams in the sailors' ears as they race. Night navigation is an art form for the MTB crews. They use the silhouette of the coast to find their way, approaching the target with the engines muffled and low, and opening the throttles for the final deadly run. Domestic construction means they can be replaced. As boats are lost to combat, new ones are launched. They are the most active part of the Navy in the war. It's protecting the coast from Soviet raids and landings. Germany sends help in the form of the famous S-boats. These Schnellboots are the gold standard of the war. Running on diesel, they are reliable and very long range. They bring German engineering to the Romanian front. Romanian crews train with German sailors to learn. The S-boats carry 20 mm cannons and heavy torpedoes. They are much more stable in the rough Black Sea. They become a vital part of the Joint Axis patrols. Italy transfers the MS boats to help the cause. Small, twitchy, and designed for the Mediterranean. They are fast, but struggle with the colder, rougher sea. Still, they add their sting to the coastal defense. But Italy's surrender in 1943 creates a major crisis. The supply of Italian parts and engines stops at once. The MS boats are slowly cannibalized to keep others going. The fleet is shrinking as the war enters its final act. Now we look at the invisible war of the minefields. The Admiral Murgescu is the master of this domain, a purpose-built mine layer that changed the entire war. She is slow, but she carries the deadliest cargo. 120 mines can be rolled off her stern in one mission. She creates defensive carpets around the vital ports. The Soviet Navy cannot move without fearing the bottom. The Murgescu is the most successful ship in the Navy. Properly laid minefields act as an invisible wall. They channel enemy ships into Romanian killing zones. Many Soviet submarines met their end in these fields. The Murgescu worked in the dark, silent and steady. She survived the war and the switch of sides in 1944, turning her minds against the Germans who helped her, a ship that served 2 masters with the same efficiency. Her legacy is written in the wrecks on the seabed. For every mine laid, someone must go and find them. The minesweepers are the unsung heroes of the sea, converted fishing boats and small wooden trawlers. They sail into the heart of danger with every dawn. They tow long cables to cut the mine's heavy tether. When the mine bobs to the surface, it must be killed. A sailor with a rifle takes aim from the swaying deck. One shot detonates the mine in a pillar of white water. This is the most nerve-wracking job in the entire fleet. If the sweeper hits a mine, there is no survival. The wooden hulls help avoid the magnetic sensors. But luck is the only thing that keeps them floating. Now we travel to the muddy waters of the Danube. The river monitors are the heavy tanks of the water. The Mihail Kogolnishanu is a beast of armor and guns. She can operate in water only 1.5 meters deep. Her 120 mm guns can flatten a village on the bank. She protects the grain barges and the oil shipments. She is draped in steel that can stop most artillery. A river monster that the Soviet army learned to fear. When the front lines moved, the monitors moved too, providing fire support for the Romanian Fourth Army. They were the masters of the riverine war for years, till the day the political winds changed forever. The human element of the Navy is the most important. Sailors who spent years in the spray and the cold, living on meager rations while the bombs fell above. Their courage was the only thing that kept the ships alive. Destroyer crews fought their guns until the very end. Submariners endured the silence and the crushing depth. MTB sailors raced into the jaws of a superior enemy. They all performed their duties with a grim resolve. The operational record shows a mix of grit and loss. Romanian mines protected the coast for 3 long years. Submarine patrols kept the Soviet Navy off balance. Surface forces ensured the convoys never stopped. But the loss of 4 destroyers was a heavy blow. Operating surface ships without air cover was suicide. The Red Air Force eventually cleared the sea of flags. The Romanian Navy was being strangled from the air. By 1944, the situation for the Axis was desperate. The Soviet army was knocking on Romania's front door. The sailors wondered which way the wind would blow next. A secret plot was brewing in the palace in Bucharest. August 23, 1944, the world changes in a heartbeat. King Michael orders the arrest of the pro-German leader. Romania switches sides and joins the Allied cause. Former brothers in arms are now the deadliest enemies. The Navy is caught in a confusing and lethal limbo. German ships in Constanga are suddenly under attack. The Romanian sailors must fire on their former friends. The chaos on the water mirrors the chaos on land. Many Romanian ships are seized by the Soviet Union. The Russians do not trust their new Romanian allies. Vessels are sailed to Soviet ports under a red guard. The pride of the Royal Navy is taken as war booty. The destroyers are renamed and painted with new letters. The submarines are stripped of their Romanian heritage. A fleet that fought for years is erased in a few weeks. Sailors are left with nothing but their memories. Let's look back at the technical legacy of the fleet. The Nuka class proved that Romania could build well. The Murgescu proved that mine warfare was the key. Ferdinand class proved that style was not enough. Every ship had a story that ended in salt and steel. From the smallest motorboat to the largest monitor, they were the victims of a war they could not win. But they were masters of the theater they were given. The Black Sea is a graveyard for many brave men. Romanian and Soviet sailors rest together in the sand. The war was intense, dangerous, and ultimately tragic. The sea does not care which side a sailor fought for. We must remember the auxiliary ships that worked too, tugs, the tankers, and the repair ships in port. Without them, the combat vessels could not survive, worked in the shadows, keeping the heart beating. The coastal batteries also played a vital naval role. Heavy guns on the cliffs protected the harbor mouth. They traded fire with Soviet cruisers in the distance. A combined defense of land and sea against the Red. Training was the secret to the Romanian Navy's success. Officers were educated in the best schools of Europe. They knew the theory of naval war better than most. But the reality of the Black Sea was a different beast. Logistics was the constant nightmare for the admiral. Getting fuel from the refineries to the dockside. Finding enough shells for the Italian-made cannons. Yet the war was won and lost in the supply warehouses. The climate of the Black Sea is a harsh, cruel master. Freezing winters that coat the decks in thick ice. Sudden storms that can flip a motorboat in seconds. The sailors fought the weather as much as the enemy. Communications were often cut or jammed by the Red. Ships had to rely on signal lamps and hand gestures. In the heat of battle, the noise was overwhelming. Command and control was a matter of sheer willpower. The evacuation of Crimea in 1944 was the final test. Romanian ships worked to save thousands of troops. Under a hail of fire, they loaded men onto the decks. It was a heroic effort in the middle of a total defeat. The sailors saw the faces of the men they saved. Gratitude and terror mixed in the eyes of the soldiers. The Navy did its duty until the very last transport. Crimea fell, but the Navy held its honor in the retreat. Post-war Romania was a very different country. The Royal Navy was disbanded and turned into a red one. The traditions of the kings were buried under ideology. The officers were purged and replaced by party men. But the history of the ships could not be erased. The wrecks of the Ferdinand and Maria still remain. Divers find the rusted guns and the twisted hulls. They are silent witnesses to a time of fire and ash. The Marisetti lived on for a few years in Soviet hands. A tired old lady serving a master she didn't choose. Eventually, she was scrapped and melted for new steel. The last link to the old Royal Navy was finally broken. The submarines were the last to be retired from use. The Soviets learned a lot from the Italian designs. They used them to build their own fleet of hunters. The Romanian legacy lives on in the Soviet blueprints. Nuka-class boats were eventually replaced by metal. Wood was no longer the material of choice for war, but the shipyard at Galatz still builds ships today. The tradition of Romanian naval construction continues. The Admiral Mergescu is remembered by mine experts. Her tactics are still studied in naval colleges today. She showed how a small nation can deny a large one. The master of the invisible front still gets her due. The river monitors have faded into the muddy bank. The age of the armored riverboat has long passed, but the Danube still flows past the old battle sites. The ghosts of the Kogolnishanu still haunt the river. This comprehensive look at the fleet is now ending. We have seen the ships, the men, and the tragic fates. From the first shot in June to the last one in August, the Romanian flag flew with pride on the Black Sea. No ship was too small to play a part in the story. No sailor was too young to feel the weight of the war. They were a secondary power that left a primary mark. The Royal Romanian Navy earned its place in the history. The lessons of the Black Sea are still relevant now. How air power dominates the surface of the water. How mines can stop a superpower in its tracks. How a small fleet can survive against impossible odds. We honor the memory of the crews who never came home, the 180 men of the Regina Maria who rest in the deep, the submariners who vanished without a single trace. Their sacrifice is part of the salt in the Black Sea. The story of Romanian warships is a tragic masterpiece, a tale of high technology and low political fortune. A fleet that was built for glory, but found only war. But in that war, they showed the world their strength. Look at the waves of the Black Sea and see the ghosts. The sleek destroyers racing through the morning mist. The submarines rising to breathe in the cold night air. The motorboats skipping across the surface like stones. This is the legacy of the Forgol Navali Regale Romain. Story of steel, salt, and the courage of a nation. Though the ships are gone, the history remains alive. The Royal Romanian Navy will never be forgotten now.